How much AA can you break? Realistically, not all of it. AA is distributed across the length of the ship in so many different nooks and crannies that it is very unlikely that you somehow break 100% of all AA guns. However, if you're in a Kremlin, you may experience something very similar to that because a lot of your AA is positioned on top of itself. And being in a Kremlin, you're probably going to be taking constant high explosive shell fire. And since high explosions are going to have a box around them that are going to entrap other pieces of AA mounts, those AA mounts very likely get cleaned off. Realistically, how much AA can you break? I think it's probably uncommon to see AA dropped lower than 60% effective. And with Adrenaline Rush giving a plus 20 as your health goes down, this is kind of pushed back up to that 80 to 85% kind of range. And of course, if the AA mounts don't break, then it could even be pushed above that to 110, 100 and whatever. Should AA breakage be something that you go for? Well, it's not something that's bad. It really comes down to what your assets are and what can you do. So if it turns out that you've got an enemy ship that you need to strike, and this enemy ship you happen to have some rockets and you happen to have some bombs. Well, if you had to choose an order of operations, if a strike with rockets is not going to result in a kill, if a strike with bombs is not going to result in a kill, and this is the only target you're going to be working on for the foreseeable future, if you take some rockets over and you strike, you might shred some pieces of AA, probably 1, 2, 3, maybe even as many as 4, in which case then you could come over with the bombs and theoretically you've reduced the AA by a small amount. Now that small amount could mean the difference between taking 500 damage a second and taking 470 damage a second. It could actually be very minute. It might be that they took previous battle damage, in which case they're actually significant, dropping it down to 410, which is a sizable reduction. But is there ever a situation where you can shred the AA mounts on an enemy ship so badly that you simply just won't feel any AA, or that it's almost gone? Realistically, no. The Kremlin is a bit of an outlier because it was specifically nerfed, but even with the anti-air mounts being broken, shattered, and beaten up, an enemy ship is still going to have a priority sector command, and the priority sector command is going to deal a percentage-based amount of damage to your planes, which means that even if these are beaten, that 500 is knocked all the way down to say 220 or something. Still 220 a second, and you're still going to take percentage health when they hit the priority sector button, which means it's unlikely that you can somehow milk this from maybe you're attacking a Montana, which is usually going to be 2 strikes. Suddenly you're going to strike 3 or even 4 times with, say, some midway planes. I have almost never, and I do mean almost never, experienced a situation where a ship's AA was so badly savaged that it was almost non-existent. The amount of times that has actually happened, I believe, has been something like 4 times out of over 14,000 games. So realistically, if you can break some AA, cool. Somewhere along the lines, that's helping the math in your favor. But is that something that you should go out of your way to be overly concerned with? I personally would argue no.